Thank you. Welcome to the September 23rd, 2020 Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. This is a teleconference meeting with commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely to ensure proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. I'd like to introduce the staff and commission members present. Commissioners present include myself, Jennifer Baskin, Commissioner Dana Payne, Commissioner Christopher Harris, Commissioner Peter Diepenbrock, Commissioner Mark Bryman, Commissioner Jennifer Johnson. Staff present includes Library and Community Services Director Sean Reinhart, Assistant Community Services Director Adrienne Lee Bird, and Senior Office Assistant Linda Munguia. Next, we have public comment. And under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Linda, do we have any public comments?
Okay, so if anyone from the public would like to address the commission, go ahead and use the raise hand feature or the chat feature, which is at the bottom of your screen. Okay, I'm not seeing anything.
Okay, I'm not seeing anyone either. So we'll move on to regular business. Do you want to approve the Parks and Recreation Commission minutes for the meeting of August 26, 2020? Did anyone have any edits, comments, changes they feel need to be made to that? Okay, sounds good. They read well to me too, accurate. Does anyone, can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Mark Bryman.
Thank you, Mark. Adrienne, did you have something we wanted to?
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I think, does Sarah not have the link for commissioners? Because it seems like she's in attendees, but not on screen.
Yeah.
She should have received an email with a personal link about an hour ago.
I'll email it really quickly.
Okay.
She'll probably.
Or you might be able to just promote her to panelist, Linda.
Yeah.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Christopher. All those in favor?
Actually, I need to call out.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay. So, Chair Baskin.
Yes.
Vice Chair Staley Schenk.
Yep. Thank you. Yes.
Commissioner Bryman.
Yes.
Commissioner Diepenbrock.
Yes.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes, approve.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
And Commissioner Payne.
I'll abstain for my absence.
Perfect. Motion has been passed.
Thank you. So next up, we will take a look at approving a recommendation to the City Council supporting a pilot pickleball program at Kelly Park. More exciting. And will who will be presenting on this? Adrienne? Okay.
Yes, thank you. And Linda, do you want to put the presentation up? Okay. Oops. Thanks, Linda. Okay, so tonight we are here with you to bring our proposal for a pilot pickleball program for Menlo Park. We can advance the slide. So tonight we're going to go over kind of a little bit about the sport of pickleball, though most of you guys have a good sense of it already. Talk about some of the potential locations in Menlo Park, and then talk about the current tennis program and how that is run. Just review the community interest and how we got here, and then talk about what we are proposing for a pilot pickleball program. So the sport of pickleball, the U.S. Pickleball Association says that there's over 3.3 million pickleball players in the U.S. currently. It's very similar to tennis, but used with a wiffle ball and a plastic or a wooden paddle. There are smaller courts. One tennis court you can actually divide into 4 separate courts for pickleball. And because of the wiffle ball, it's a slower moving ball. And so it's fairly easy to learn and really appeals to a wide range of ages. And because it's easy to learn and a lot of different people can play it, it's a very fast growing sport across the US. So in Menlo Park, there are 15 tennis courts throughout the city, divided among 5 different locations. There are 2 courts at Burgess. Those are side-by-side courts. 2 courts at Kelly. They run north to south. 2 at La Entrada Middle School, and we have a joint use agreement with the school. So during school hours, we are not allowed to program the courts. Nealon Park, there are 5 tennis courts. That is the most busy location for tennis currently. And then there are 4 at Willow Oaks. Currently, with our tennis program, community members can purchase a key for $63 a year. For non-residents, that cost is $127 per year. That enables you to enter the tennis court. You're supposed to use it on it caps at 1 hour, but if no one else is there, of course, you can stay on longer. Additionally, we have tennis court rentals. That's $17 an hour. Non-residents, it's $22 an hour, and mainly used for folks offering private tennis lessons, or for players who want to make sure they have a court reserved if they're going to play a match with someone and they don't want a chance walking on. And then one of the current practices that we have is we usually leave 50% of the courts available for walk-on whenever possible. So if there are 2 tennis courts, we won't reserve both of them. We'll only reserve 1, so that if community members come and want to walk on, there's a court, 50% chance that they can walk on to one, at least 1. So just a reminder about how this came forward. In February, Commissioner Diebenbrock mentioned pickleball, and we talked about it and putting it on a future agenda. We are actually supposed to see a presentation for it in March, and then the shelter happened. Thankfully, we were able to bring it back in August, and Jim Carson, who is a longtime Menlo Park resident, gave us a presentation on pickleball. Additionally, over 40 folks were in attendance, and 10 people spoke in support of pickleball. Many were from the Palo Alto Pickleball Club. A little bit about the Palo Alto Pickleball Club, and some of these numbers vary from the report. We altered some of the numbers after, so I'll make sure to note that. Founded in September 2016, there are over 500 members spanning the ages of 5 to 93, and over 50 members of the Palo Alto Pickleball Court live in Menlo Park. And from what we are told, the 15 courts at Mitchell Park are heavily used. They have they are prioritized for pickleballs during the hours from 8 to 3, and then an additional 8 courts from 3 to 10. And just a reminder, because 4 courts can fit onto a tennis court, that's not 15 tennis courts. Okay. So staff, after the last Park and Rec Commission meeting, staff did our research as directed by the commission. And we talked about what the best place would be for a pilot pickleball court. We're looking at a dual use court so that it can remain, you can play tennis on it, but it's also striped for pickleball. And like I had mentioned before, there can be up to 4 courts on one tennis court. And Kelly Park came to mind. And the reason that came to mind was it runs north to south. This is actually not a picture of Kelly Park, I apologize. And so we thought, since it's not side by side, that might be easier. Additionally, out of all the locations for tennis, it is the least utilized. And so we figured that if we want to pilot it and just see what the interest is and see, if it picks up, it would have the least impact to the current tennis users. We received a quote, and we will be doing additional quotes, but the quote we received to stripe and condition the court for pickleball was $3,000, and that would include the nets and everything. And then we were looking at doing a 6-month pilot program and prioritizing the courts for pickleball from 8 to noon, 7 days a week. So as you saw in Palo Alto at Mitchell Park, those were, I believe, 8 to 3. Was it? Can you go back one? Sorry. That 8 to 3, yes. Okay. And then in case that doesn't work, or there's, massive outcry from the community about wanting it to go back to tennis, we can revert the court back. It costs a little bit more money to paint it back, which is $5,000. So in total, the investment from the city to pilot it would not exceed $8,000, but most likely to convert one court, it would be $3,000. And currently, beyond Palo Alto, the other surrounding cities that have pickleball courts are Foster City, Redwood City, and San Carlos. So we are proposing a 6-month pilot at Kelly Park, sticking with our rule of keeping 50% of the courts open for walk-on. So converting one of the courts at a cost of $3,000, having it be dual use for tennis or pickleball, and then prioritizing the court from 8 to noon, 7 days a week for pickleball. And so we would like you to weigh in on some of those terms and see if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. That was well done, and I know we're all excited to have a chat about this. Linda, do we have any public comments?
Yeah, so if anyone, attendees would like to speak to the commission regarding this, go ahead and use the raise hand feature or the chat feature. I don't see
I
anything.
don't see any either. Okay, so we do have some questions that staff had prepared for us to kind of help guide us through the conversation. So some of the things that we can speak about is, do we recommend a 6-month pilot program to convert a tennis court into 4 pickleball courts? So just a reminder, it's 1 court that you would then reline into a dual use court with 4 pickleball courts, obviously still can be used for tennis as well. Do we recommend the proposed location of Kelly Park? And do we recommend designating the court at Kelly Park to be prioritized for pickleball from the hours of 8 a.m. to noon, 7 days a week? Does anyone want to, Christopher?
There were a couple things in Adrian's presentation I was hoping to get some clarification on, and one of those was to try to understand the keys. I'm not a tennis court user, and so I wasn't quite sure what it meant for pickleball users, and the keys. Like, are those keys for anytime anyone wants to use any court in Menlo Park, they need to have a key, and so they need to pay a fee? Is that right? Just so I understand.
Yes, so anytime anyone wants to use the court, even if it's walk-on, you would need a key to access the court.
I see.
And so it can either be, I think it was the $63 for the year, or it could be, the city also sells a $5 day use fee. So you can check out a key for the day and go play for $5.
Can the key be shared? Like, could I get a key and then share it with 10 of my friends?
Right. So in the spirit of what we were trying to do, the key should not be shared, but I don't, so no, it is
Okay.
not supposed to be shared.
Thank you.
Should not, but not necessarily shall not, if you know what I mean.
Right.
I'm a very experienced key user, so I can comment on that later. But Peter, since you're also a more expert than us in pickleball.
One thing that maybe it wasn't clear to me. What does it mean, $63 a year and $127 a year?
Sorry, so the $127 a year is for non-residents. So for residents, it's $63, and that just helps maintain the upkeep of the courts.
I had a couple other things. So the request was for Nealon Park, not Kelly Park. So is that something we can discuss? I mean, I know talking to the Menlo Park pickleball players, I mean, one of the keys, obviously, yes, Palo Alto's impacted, but one of the other ones is that it's a 20-minute drive to Palo Alto, and it'd be nice if it was only a 5-minute drive. And the reason why Nealon is the most used for tennis is because it's the most centrally located. So obviously that would be the most ideal for pickleball as well. So is that something that we can discuss, or how does that work?
It's certainly something that the commission can discuss. Staff's recommendation for the pilot period is to locate it at one of the lesser utilized tennis courts, and that is Kelly Park. It's a great tennis court. It's not too far away. Yes, Nealon is the busiest location, in part because it's so central, and right now it's very busy with tennis players. Pickleball seems like it's great. Definitely want to give it a try. But we feel for like a pilot period, should try to err on the side of less impact to the current users, and then more access for pickleball users, and not having to compete quite so much with the heavy use of Nealon right now.
Well, I guess like Jim Carson said, one could definitely, it'd be nice to have some definitive numbers on the use of that single tennis court at Nealon Park from 8 a.m. till noon on weekday mornings. I think that's debatable. I don't know if we have any numbers on that. And the other thing is, it's almost like you're not giving you could say that you're not giving the pickleball pilot program a chance by putting it off at Kelly Park when people could just as easily drive to Palo Alto. I mean, that's a pretty significant difference in the request. That's not just, it happens to be a less used court. It's equal. I mean, that's a pretty big difference going to Kelly Park as opposed to Nealon Park. So I would like to have it open for discussion, because it's almost like pickleball's not even getting a chance by putting it out there. That's my opinion.
If I could just weigh in, I really appreciate that opinion, Commissioner Diepenbrock. Just point out that there are folks who do live close to Kelly Park as well, and we just want to be cognizant, that we are here to serve all the residents of Menlo Park, including folks who kind of live on the Bayside part of town. So we do want to consider all of our locations kind of in an equal and equitable manner.
Well, that's why Nealon Park is so much busier for tennis, because it's so centrally located. So that doesn't really make sense to say that, to be honest with you. I mean, that's the reason most people live. It's right in the middle of Menlo Park, so it's the most accessible. I mean, I don't think you can argue that Kelly Park is equally as accessible, or maybe their tennis courts would be just as used as Nealon Park. I do have another question. I don't know how this works, but I don't understand the money on this either. The request can just be for tape. It doesn't have to be painted. It doesn't have to be this elaborate deal. I mean, you can easily buy tape for, you know, $50, $100 and tape 4 courts. I'd like to hear exactly how the $3,000 and the $5,000, because to me, that's completely unnecessary.
So what I was told by our the person who maintains our courts is folks have taped them in the past and it's actually left a stain, and so they recommended not taping. Also, if the tape peels up, it can be a trip hazard. So the recommendation was to do paint, to stripe the court actually with paint, like a tennis court.
Again, I've played on taped courts many times, and I've never had that issue. So I don't know where that comes from, but it sure would be a lot less of an investment to tape them. That's for sure.
Commissioner Bryman?
Thank you. Peter, first of all, I want to thank you for bringing it to our attention. I mean, I think it's kind of a no-brainer, right? I mean, it's certainly something we're all excited about. It makes perfect sense. It's not a huge cost either way. I think the safety factor is probably worth the money, quite frankly. But all that said, I'm wondering, where is the brunt of the request coming from? What's the demographic of those people? We know that they're Palo Alto members, but where do those people live?
Well, I guess we'd have to get that information. Yeah.
So my sense is this, it's prudent. I am a tennis player. All that aside, I'm excited to try pickleball and get into it. It does make some certain sense to me that you don't mess with where the energy is now, right? If tennis is strong here and we have all of these other courts, especially for a pilot program, if it wasn't a pilot, if it was, okay, this is a permanent thing and we're absolutely going for it, it would seem to me that there probably should be some onus on those users to convince us that that is the case. So yes, making it easier for them, I think in the longer run is a worthy consideration. And I also understand maybe peeling off some hours at Nealon, as you suggest. Maybe we can, you know, just for the sake of that centrality that you're speaking of, that makes the most sense to me, right? Either Nealon or Burgess is kind of a central location with respect to the city. All that said, we'd like to give some love to, you know, to the Kelly folks and quite frankly, open our arms to, you know, to the wholeness of what we're trying to achieve here, in my mind.
Thank you. Jennifer Johnson?
Hi, thank you. I fully support bringing pickleball to Menlo Park. I think it is great exercise. People enjoy it. We do, it's our responsibility though, to take care of all of the residents of Menlo Park. And if you look at a map, Nealon Park is not central. Nealon Park is on the west side of Menlo Park. And we need to be thoughtful about the decisions that we make. We can't, as a commission, we really need to make sure that our decisions benefit all of Menlo Park. And there has historically been some, differences in terms of services on one side of the city and the other side of the city. So I think it would be nice to be mindful of that. And if you want to talk about what's really central to Menlo Park, it's probably closer to like the Willows than Nealon. And while I realize that, you know, some of the people who are interested would prefer Nealon Park, I think it's fair to consider other locations, you know, given current usage. I will admit, I live on the west side of Menlo Park, and if I wanted to play pickleball, it would probably be faster for me to drive to Palo Alto than to Kelly Park. But it's not about my convenience. It's about kind of balancing out balancing out all the needs. So.
Commissioner Sarah Staley.
Tell me about the timing of using Kelly Park as it relates to the Annetta Harris plans.
The demolition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great question. So I can speak to this at a later agenda item in more detail, but currently that project, first of all, is not going to touch Kelly Park at all. And access to Kelly Park will remain throughout the construction process. But the construction portion, which will be kind of on the existing Annetta Harris campus, is currently tentatively expected to begin in summer of next year.
Commissioner Payne.
I was just wondering, and I know that this will be a discussion for after the pilot program once it actually has concluded, but do we have any already in place, like measurements that we're looking for, like some threshold of usage that would then be able to justify having the courts at a space like Nealon or another, more centralized or west side of the community at that point?
That's a really good point. So we actually did we actually measured the use of some of the courts, but it ended up being, because we had such a quick turnaround time, it ended up being the week that we had really poor air quality. So we need to redo that again. But the plan would really be to, intermittently go out to Kelly, and we have staff on the campus, and see what the usage is. And if it's, at its peak and used from 8 to 12 and really busy, we would definitely want to revisit it, bring that information back to the commission and have the commission direct us of what you would like us to look into.
How about oh, sorry.
Yeah, continue.
Oh, I was just going to ask if there was a way of distributing that information then to make sure that the people who in Menlo Park who want to play pickleball, which sounds like a lot of people already are aware of this project going on, but just to make sure that they would, if it is maybe an inconvenience to go to the Kelly Park instead of Palo Alto, that they would make that inconvenience for those 6 months to ensure that those volumes were met, and then the discussion would be stronger, or the argument would be stronger then at the end of 6 months for an additional court.
If I could just jump in on that, I mean, yes, and to Adrian's point, some of it does just involve observation, because there's just like drop-in hours and people get keys for the whole season, but you can go check it out. But then the other element to that, and so I guess I would say that's a little bit hard to say they have to hit some certain number, right? I don't know if that's quite the spirit of what we're trying to do here, because clearly there are enthusiasts in town who want a place to play. But I think the other side of that is really just sort of like impacts, just overall, like to other users of the courts, the traditional users of the courts, tennis. I think there's definitely room for everybody, but giving it a try, sort of evaluating it on those two metrics, I think is going to be key during a pilot period. And to Adrian's point, we do have staff located on site Monday through Friday in particular, who can provide a little bit more of that anecdotal observational information in much more detail than I think we could for the other look.
I have a couple of thoughts on this, because I do appreciate Peter's insight that the ask, and I'd forgotten this actually, and maybe we need to go back and look for clarity, that the ask was actually to have a pickleball court at Nealon Park. I just thought pickleball courts in Menlo Park. So I didn't realize there was a specific ask from this user group, which I think is relevant in the discussion, because if they do find at the end of the day, driving to a park in Menlo Park is the same amount of time / traffic / distance as Palo Alto, they might not change. And we've kind of artificially provided a barrier to something from the start. I don't think that that's necessarily the right way to go about it. But the two things I feel like maybe you know this information or not are, one, during the hours of 8 and 12, what does the capacity of Nealon Park Tennis Court look like? But then secondly, once we've painted the court with the pickleball lines, how do we actually, because I do know for a fact that after the hours of 12 and really during the hours of 4, 5, and 6, the Nealon courts are packed. There are people waiting to play tennis. I've waited to play tennis there. What then prohibits, you know, a group of people to go on and then play pickleball? And I guess that's kind of my question is, are we really considering sort of the long, just because we might acknowledge that in the morning, this is an empty time for them to play, but then we actually see like waiting times and people waiting, you know, many hours during the rest of the day. What stops people from playing pickleball? Or you really just can't, right? You can't just say this is for tennis and kick them off, really, right?
Right, it would
Yeah.
be adding additional users.
Yeah.
It would be, you can be
And
tennis
the
or
only other question, and this was brought up when we redid Nealon Park, is rethinking about parking. There's parking along the Middle Avenue side facing of Nealon Park, which is, we've talked about, not ideal, rather dangerous. And so there's a whole slew of parking kind of perpendicular to that goes around back by the baseball field. And generally parking is, it's half and half, whether sometimes it's super crowded, sometimes it's not. So we just, that's the other impact of how parking versus pedestrian usage and overall safety in terms of people being able to like drive and park there.
Right. I mean, just so if I could just address a couple of those things, maybe in reverse order. Certainly there is parking adjacent to all the courts, maybe I think with the exception of Entrada. But just like the idea that I guess the question really is the intent here to just make pickleball more convenient for users, or because I kind of heard the question of having a place in Menlo Park. And so I'm not so sure that we, I don't think that we're in competition with Palo Alto at all. You know, that's not really, I think, what motivates us as a department. I think what motivates us is just trying to respond to our community's needs and requests as best we can, and trying to balance those needs because, you know, we have a lot of people, you know, with differing needs, all kind of, you know, trying to share the same resources. So, you know, I understand the kind of convenience factor, but I just wanted to let you all know that I think from the staff's perspective, that's not really a primary motivator for us. If it's in Menlo Park, you know, that's probably better than Palo Alto, regardless of the location within our city, which is not that big.
Commissioner Diepenbrock?
Well, actually, yeah, you bring up a great point, Jennifer, because that is another part of the equation that can be separated from the request is, you know, if there are pickleball courts on the Nealon court, maybe there is no designated time. You know, maybe it's just first come, first serve, like I assume it would be at Kelly Park out, I don't know, this wasn't made clear, but outside of 8 a.m. to noon, I assume that if pickleball players are playing over at 4 p.m. and there's no tennis players, that pickleball players could go and play on the pickleball court. So there is another variable there that, you know, maybe there are no designated times, because I guess, you know, the way it works in Palo Alto, when you have a designated time, it's exactly like you mentioned. If there's a tennis player on the pickleball court during a designated time, the pickleball player says, excuse me, sorry, this is pickleball time, or vice versa. The tennis player says, sorry, this is tennis time. But if there's no designated time, then it's just first come, first serve. and whoever gets there plays. So that's another factor. The other thing is, are there lights at Kelly Park? Does anybody? Yes. Yes.
Sorry, of the two courts, they're both lit.
Okay.
Yes.
Jennifer, can I ask a quick question? So this kind of this question is basically about the busyness at Kelly. And the reason I'm asking this is that the last time I was there and actually saw the tennis courts, they weren't playable. Like there were no nets or anything there. And I'm wondering, so are the numbers artificially lowered because they're not currently playable, or has that situation changed?
I would need to check them out this week, but normally they would have courts, and when they are being resurfaced, we have a couple that are scheduled to be resurfaced and have just been resurfaced, not at Kelly, then we take down the nets, but I can double check on that.
Yeah, it wasn't a time when it was being resurfaced. It was that something had happened to the nets.
Okay, I can double check.
So I didn't know if that had been changed, and maybe that is kind of changing the use of Kelly tennis courts.
The nets should be up, and actually when we were doing the count,
Okay.
They were there when I was out there.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay, I was just curious.
I didn't go in and look because I kind of passed by. Just to the previous point though about availability, it actually would be possible, I think, to just dedicate the court at Kelly to pickleball, pretty much all the time. Just from the standpoint of accessibility and availability, because I think we could achieve that without a substantial impact to current users, and that might make just the potential conflict and arguing over who has priority for the court just sort of makes that issue kind of go away. So I just want to kind of put that out there as an
Commissioner Bryman.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. I think, firstly, to speak to Commissioner Johnson's point and her earlier talk about the centrality of things, she's absolutely right. And I think, quite frankly, that does go to what we're trying to achieve in a much larger scope than just pickleball, right? We're wanting to be inclusive and to try to kind of include everybody. If the Willows is the middle, then we have 4 courts at Willow Oaks. How busy are those courts, Adrian and Sean? And is there a chance that in the in respect to centrality, if you will, that we're inclusive and we can peel off some time at one of those courts and everybody wins?
They are pretty busy. We would have to do a count if we wanted to compare the Willow to Nealon to Kelly.
I'm just speaking about Willow Oaks. It's central. It seems to solve both a convenience and a central issue in terms of serving everybody. And I guess my recommendation would be look into that usage, and those hours are what, 4 courts there?
Yes, 4 courts, and they're basically 2 side by side. And I just confirmed that Kelly's nets are up and ready to go.
Yeah, and just that other element, I just want to kind of make sure it's in the conversation about, centrality and accessibility. If we only look at things from that metric, then a pretty substantial set of facilities in Kelly Park and Annetta Harris never really meet those criteria. I think Commissioner Johnston was on point earlier about just sort of the historic, sort of prioritization of certain activities in certain areas of town and not others. We just want to be cognizant of.
Commissioner Harris.
So I want to better understand the role of the Palo Alto Pickleball Club. What I think I hear is that the club might be disappointed if it's in a place like Kelly Park. And is this a pilot, pilot program for the Palo Alto Pickleball Club? Or is this a pilot program just to see the community response that we get here in Menlo Park if we establish some courts? And yes, it'd be great if the Palo Alto Club comes on over and uses them. I'm trying to get a sense. I almost wonder if this is really about the Palo Alto Pickleball Club and trying to meet their needs. Should we consider them a field user group, right? And have them go through the field user group process? Or is this about trying to build, try to see, it's one of those, if we offer it and build it, will they come? And we want to try this part of the city for the reasons that we've just heard. I'm curious about what we're trying to achieve here. Truly, it was clear to me in the last meeting that we had quite a few folks from the Palo Alto Club, and they had tremendous enthusiasm, and I got enthused by their enthusiasm. But I'm also thinking, gosh, what are we doing this pilot for? Is it for this club, or is it because of pickleball itself, and we want to make this we want to offer it to our residents?
Well, I thought it was because we have Menlo Park residents that want to
Mhm.
play pickleball. I don't understand the question. I mean, we have Menlo Park residents that want to play pickleball in Menlo Park.
Sure. And
They happen to be a part of Palo Alto because we don't have any place to play right now. So I don't understand the question.
Yeah, but his question is if we are bringing a solution to a specific user group, like a club, like Alpine Soccer, where you give a specific solution so they can reserve field time or court time, or are we looking to make it an offering, like an offering in our flyer as a Menlo Park offers pickleball to anyone who wants to play, and this is the location that we have courts with pickleball lines. So
thank you, Jennifer. That's exactly.
versus anyone can come out and play, just like a tennis court exists, and I decide I want to go out and play. Not that I'm playing with Jim Heedner's tennis group at the court. That's what I think you were getting at. I hope that kind of
Yeah,
clarifies.
you said it actually much better than I did.
Well, no, you were great. But I think the spirit of this is, well, it's very easy. A club can apply for some court time and we can figure out how that could happen. But I thought the spirit of this is more of what you initially are asking about, Chris, and maybe the department can clarify for us, is that this is a offering of Menlo Park, and that's the spirit of it, as an offering, not just for a specific group.
Mhm.
Well, I think our general tendency in response to direction and kind of policy guidance delivered by our city council is to really make our services accessible in an equitable fashion to all residents. And there's definitely been sort of a trend of late. Now, I've been with the city for 2 years, so it maybe began before that or only accelerated recently, to really take another look at sort of exclusivity and some other things that kind of happen with some of the city's facilities, and some of them may be cost prohibitive to participate, or there's emphasis on bringing the cool stuff that is maybe family friendly or really accessible, and only putting it in like the Burgess campus, for example. And so I think, to answer your question from our city council's perspective, they're really focused on that issue to the point where it is one of the top priorities of the city council this year, is to really look at everything that we offer, specifically in this department, but throughout the city, through that lens of diversity, equity, inclusivity for all residents. So I think, given the choice, we would definitely want to sort of default to, this is a community amenity that we're kind of making available to all, and maybe not just be responsive to the requests and needs of a specific kind of club of people. Not that we never do that, but what I'm saying is that's sort of council's policy guidance.
Okay, that helps clarify things. Commissioner Staley Shank.
I was wondering, can we make it free? Could we make the pilot without a cost base? Like if we're trying to create a new community offering and expand the use, I often find having to go and get a key or sign up for something, especially if it's the first time I've used it, rather prohibitive to my trial period. And so if we're categorizing this as a pilot to try to create engagement, whether it's for exploration with a part of the community that perhaps others are less familiar with, or with a sport that's new, I wonder if in the spirit of what we're trying to do as it relates to that, Sean, if we couldn't consider that as well as we look to try to attract a user group. You know, it's, if you think about it, like when people, you know, sort of on a membership application, you know, like first months are free, you know, like, or, you know, it's just like, what is our call to action in a way that we can both create a community offering that's new, really truly follow the possibility of pilot, and see how something sticks in a way that also might create a greater community engagement in general. I just find the key sort of money thing often a sticking point. And so I just wondered, especially if we're terming something a pilot, if we couldn't eliminate that as a stipulation.
We could certainly look into that. I think there's just some sort of physical elements to kind of contend with. You know, all the courts are configured with, you know, a locking door that's sort of automatically locking the key. I tend to agree that we should really look at how we can make everything as accessible as possible, including eliminating fees where appropriate. We do kind of have this conflicting use, though, of tennis players who are paying, you know, a fee, and then would have folks doing a sort of similar but not quite activity on the same court and not have a fee. So one way to achieve that would be to just designate a specific court and
Right.
maybe reconfigure the way that you access the court,
Right.
you know, with a different key system. That would take a little work on our end, but I think it's achievable. And there's just the other thing is I think we'd want to run that through or run that by the city manager and city council in some way, because we do have a fee schedule that is set and approved by city council. Every single fee, you know, needs to be approved by the city council. And, you know, and choosing not to charge a fee, you know, conversely is also something that the council should be made aware of. So as we were kind of conceiving how we might approach pickleball would be, well, let's use one of like the existing tennis fees. Maybe we can do something with the existing $5 a day fee to make it like really accessible. So there's some things we could do there. But Commissioner, I do think that's a good point, and it's something that, you know, has come up from various directions in the past year or two. But how can we sort of take another look at fees and how that's structured? So maybe this is a good place to start, because it is a pilot. It's relatively contained. It's a new thing, so it's not changing something that already had a fee attached to it. So I can do that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Sean, I had a quick question about what you just mentioned about the keys. After reading some of the after reading the Library and Community Services update, it said in there that currently the daily key program is not happening. So if the current restrictions that we have, which are going to be ongoing, is there a way for a pilot program to begin and people to be able to get access to the courts without having to buy an annual key?
Yeah, great question. So what the reason why the day use key temporarily wasn't happening is that previously you would go into the recreation center and just pick up that key for the day. And I think they had a system where you'd like leave your ID or your credit card or something so that, you know, you bring the key back. The rest of the keys during the pandemic, they're just sent by mail, as many of you probably know. We could probably convert the day use key to that system. And I think that was in my response to, that one suggestion box suggestion. And so as far as like giving pickleball users access, the quickest way to do it with a pilot would be to somehow convert the existing key system to make it work for folks, because otherwise we have to kind of rekey the gates, and it's just a lot more time, effort, and expense. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Johnson? I want to make sure I didn't. I tend to go off track sometimes, so I want to make sure I got it.
Well, I think trying to get us aligned here a little bit on, I'm hearing a lot of different perspectives, and we're getting a lot of different questions answered, but I think what you're looking from us is some sort of direction. Do we, A, support this as an offering in the place that you have done some research and selected? Or B, do we need do we want to consider other places, and hence then need you to kind of go and research if those places are even possible, right? If a Willow Park or a Nealon Park, if it's even possible on the basis of usage. So that's one. And then, well, I guess that's the first one before we, or A, I guess we even have to take a step back. Do we all decide that a pickleball program, we want to support that, right? I think from a previous meeting, we've all been, yes, I'm seeing some thumbs up. That's a yes, okay. So now, how are our thoughts and feelings about the pilot program starting at Kelly? Again, it could just be a start. And if this is a wild success, then maybe another court someplace else gets converted. But does this sound like a right investment for a right period of time at that park?
I would just say that, like, yes, I concur that we all agree that this is something that we would like to see happen, right? I mean, we loved hearing from the community. We loved hearing from Peter that this is something we're all, that is a new way of bringing activity and engagement in our community to multiple generations and ages and stages, which is not something that we continually often do so readily offer. It sounds like there is demand or a request from community members. I think what is then just the tentative nature of this is, look, we want to make sure that where this is being offered does not compromise the already participation and heavy use of an established tennis community. And so personally, I then rely on the city staff to let me know the quantitative analysis of that traffic in order to make a recommendation. And I just don't have in front of me or know with any level of literacy sort of what court use looks like. And so I, would rely on the staff to provide an analysis of where it really is feasible for us to offer something like this, where we're not also jeopardizing another community activity. That said, if we are going to pilot something, I do think we can get creative about it. And I'd like us to be creative about not only how we would go about activating something, which is a new feature, but if it's going to be new, how can we build a community around it that would result in perhaps ultimate success? So if we do this, how do we kind of break the mold on use and location, communications, and really sort of understand how we can both then qualify and quantify the pilot as we come to conclusion, right? So it's not just about making people happy. It's like, how are we really going to try to drive something that we also know we can measure the success?
If I may, I just want to suggest that some of what we've discussed sort of goes back to the request about a singular court, right? If we can designate a specific court and there is nothing but pickleball on that court for this pilot period, which is 6 months, it's not a year. So to ask the pickleball players to buy a key for a year for a 6-month pilot doesn't seem to make much sense. So let's give it a college try. Let's put it on a singular court. The use in that particular, so people aren't having to buy their way in. We're promoting this thing, and it seems to me that we should give it that try and not force those particular people to buy a key.
Oh, it's frozen. Oh.
Sorry, I remembered my manners halfway through. And I should wait for the chair to acknowledge me, so sorry about that. That's an interesting concept. And, you know, what I was just thinking, you know, as we had our discussion about the keys and the locks and all that stuff, you know, and one way to kind of get around that would be to just open the gate, you know, for on the days then it's pickleball day, right? Just open it and then close it at the end of the day. Because one of the reasons why the courts are kept locked is, you know, we have very nice tennis courts and they're kept nice because you need a key to get in there. You know, in other cities, and I've been to many, when the courts are open, you know, they get beat up, you know, they get kind of clobbered. So Kelly Park actually does lend itself to that because we do have staff who are on site at the Onetta Harris Center actually 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. And so they could actually, you know, go ahead and open that gate in the morning and close it again in the afternoon before they go. That's something we could do without too much additional effort. I think the court would then need to totally be dedicated to pickleball because then otherwise it becomes sort of a free-for-all for tennis, and there is a rate there, and that's not fair to people who are paying. So we can look at that. There might be some other conversions we'd have to do to make that work, but I think that's doable logistically relatively soon.
I'm really supportive of looking into that idea because I think it answers kind of a lot of the questions that we've brought up. Is one, how do we make sure it's equitable feeling for all the people that are using the courts in terms of economics and in terms of time, but then also what I like about the sort of free feature of a trial, which why shouldn't this be any different from the way a business runs a trial period where they offer incentives, is maybe this is a drive out of your way from a typical pickleball supporter user community right now, but there are some benefits there for you. It's you know, a dedicated court. It's a free court for this trial period. We're also offering, and so I think if you're saying it might be a negative in some sense that it's a drive for certain people, it's a positive that we are doing something that's much more equitable and like-minded to what, you know, our principals as a commission and for the city want to do. So it's almost trying to give everyone some sort of benefit or some sort of win together. I do think, I mean, if people feel the need that they need more research over the usage of, say, a Willow or Nealon Park, maybe we could consider that. That was always something in the back of my mind, but I do like the idea for a trial period to be able to just convert that, a one court like that, which I think would be a challenge at Nealon and definitely a challenge at Willow.
One quick.
Oh, sure, Jennifer.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing. I mean, obviously, everybody needs to decide together about the location, but one of the things I've been thinking about while we've been having this discussion is that pickleball is a relatively inexpensive sport to play. And tennis is quite a bit more. And, you know, we might be able to, we might end up activating space at Kelly Park if that's where it ends up being. We might get more users using that space with a sport that is a little bit more budget friendly. So that was it.
So I guess to move forward, Sean, Adrian, would we then ask, like, if we're all deciding this might be an interesting thing, to dedicate one court to offer some sort of incentive or free, are those logistics, do you need to go back for that? Can we make a motion including some of those logistics, or it really needs to be as part of like an analysis and for us to then like move forward with this?
The commission could make a motion to recommend, like the staff's recommendation, but also to explore dedicating a specific court just to pickleball, and explore ways to just make it free during the pilot period, as we've discussed. I think we've already kind of talked through some ways that could probably work, and I think we could just run with that if that's what the commission decides to do.
Does anyone else have any additional comments or thoughts around kind of crafting a recommendation?
I just tell you that when this happens, Peter has to teach us how to play.
Parks and Rec Commission Day at the pickleball court.
Totally.
Happy to.
You can't just talk about it. You got to do it. Tournament.
Christopher?
Can I hear what the words of the motion would actually be? If this, I think if I understand it right, we're moving towards making a motion. Is that correct? I'm curious about what the words of that motion, like, is this a motion to recommend a 6-month pilot program for one tennis court at Kelly Park? And that's the motion, and along with it, a tagged recommendation around the idea that Sarah, Mark, and maybe some other folks raised about establishing at Kelly Park so we can make it free as part of the pilot program. So new kids and adults and seniors in the community can learn potentially a new sport. Is that?
That's my understanding.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify because I wanted to know what it might be first, so I didn't get caught hearing it for the first time and then have to vote for it. And then like, but I don't agree with this one part.
Yeah, what you said, that's it.
Yeah, I think you've articulated it well, incorporated as many sort of creative ideas or benefits to all the different things we're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. Sounded like it was fairly comprehensive in what you said.
I've heard now in Robert's Rules of Order, sometimes the terminology used would be "so moved." And you don't have to repeat it.
Oh, you mean so I can ask if someone is so moved? Oh, I like that. Christopher, are you so moved to make that motion?
Yes, Jennifer, I am so moved.
And I am so moved to second that movement.
So should we be restating our motion?
If I had restated, I might struggle a bit.
I'd ask Linda.
Yes. What do you think, Mark?
Oh, I just wanted to ask Sean about the condition of the courts at Kelly. You mentioned that our courts are in such good shape because we locked them up, and I'm going to have to differ with you on that one. But what are the state of the courts at Kelly?
I'm being told that they are clean and in good shape, and the nets are up.
And there would be some additional sprucing up that would happen when the new paint is applied and the new nets are installed.
Yeah,
So
sure.
we kind of give it a refresher on top of that.
I was just commenting on the surface for the most part.
Yeah, there's a schedule for resurfacing. I know Neon was completed recently. I'd have to check in with Jared on that when Kelly's next due.
Well, so should we go back to the motion? Christopher, do you want to restate or shall I?
I can give it a go. So I move to recommend a 6-month pilot program to convert one tennis court for pickleball court use at Kelly Park. And this is the second part of this. I don't know, it almost seems like a second recommendation. And recommend that the city provide free access at Kelly Park for the duration of the pilot program.
Do we have a second? Commissioner
I
Staley?
second that. I
Staley,
second that movement.
And I'll
Okay.
allow Linda to do the vote.
Yeah. So Chair Baskin,
Yeah, yes.
Vice Chair Staley,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryman,
Yes.
Commissioner Diepenbrock,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Payne.
Also, yes.
Okay, motion has passed.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Adrian, and to the staff who put together the presentation, did the work in the smoke and all of this. It was really fast turnaround for us, so I really appreciate it. Next, we have to review and update the Parks and Recreation Commission agenda calendar. So the topics for the next few months.
So this is actually something that we've had in previous years, and usually staff keeps it, but in speaking with Chair Baskin and Vice Chair Staley, we talked about possibly looking at the agenda in future months, which we will also do among the three of us. But Linda, do you have a copy of that link? Do you want to project it? Otherwise I can, it's up to you.
I'm bringing it up now.
Okay. So basically, we're kind of looking at the rest of the year and placing items that we would want to place on the agenda. Next month, we actually have someone from the county coming to do a presentation on Flood Park that was supposed to happen tonight. It got pushed. We will also be having a presentation that I didn't get up there, but from the senior center on their current activities, just how they've been doing with numbers and their food pantry and meal delivery to seniors. And so wanted to reach out to see what other items we would want to include on future meetings for this year.
I'd like to know when are we going to discuss the youth program?
The child care program?
No, the
Youth Commission.
yes.
Yes.
Where is the youth commission in the year and our role in that? And I'd love to know where that is and how we will hear more about that soon.
Sure, that's really a good point. So we just received applications. We will be inviting a couple members of the commission to be on the interview panel. And then we will be bringing back an item for the commission as an update, but I need to double check if really so it could be November or actually October. I think October would probably be good. So we can actually add that to October's. I'll make note of that.
Adrian, I had a quick calendar question.
Uh-huh.
November 25th is the day before Thanksgiving. And I know that we've tried to have a meeting on the day before Thanksgiving before and didn't have a quorum. So I just wanted to point that out. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. I don't think most of us are going anywhere, but I just wanted to mention that in case.
Right. I definitely think the for November and December, it's tricky. And normally December we don't meet. I believe if we wanted to change it from the fourth Wednesday of the month, we can. We actually just have to notify the city clerk and make an announcement to the public. So we can decide tonight or at the next meeting if we'd like to move that to earlier in November. But that's a very good point.
Yeah, I just looked it up today when I saw this and wanted to make sure that, just wanted to bring it up. And I did have a question about things on the our calendar agenda. It seems like almost a lifetime ago that we had the whole master plan process, but we all spent a lot of time on that one. And I had some questions. I understand that that council is prioritizing the new Menlo Park campus, which I think is great. One of the recommendations from the master plan was talking about, you know, things that can be done, you know, that really don't cost money, or, you know, that are like really simple and straightforward. And I don't know if that's something that needs to be talked about, or maybe if, you know, staff have some information to report back, but just, you know, kind of where some of those items have gone.
So that is actually I mean, this is perfect why we are talking about this. So that is something we can actually add to next month. So Public Works is working on completing a cost estimation on a lot of those projects. But in terms of some of the kind of low-hanging fruit, I can ask them to prepare a report for us for next month.
Okay, there were some things that were just like policy changes that didn't need to be costed out necessarily, but
right. And even, yes, so I think that would probably be good to bring back as an update in October, if that works for you.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's great.
Okay, great.
I just kind of, you know, started remembering, gosh, remember that thing that we did all the way back then?
That took 2 years of your life, yes.
Yes.
Some partnership things came to mind too when I was looking at some unscheduled future items. I think this was last year. The Bicycle Commission came to us talking about, because this project is going on along El Camino, kind of connecting underneath the train tracks like Burgess to Middle Avenue and all that. I don't know with the break and what we've had going on, have they had any updates, or if that's something that the commission is looking to get engaged on again? Because they did present, and there was some things that were part of their presentation that did touch upon parks, and obviously it would make some of our things more accessible.
Right. Sean, do you know where that project is? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. If not, I can look into it.
No, I think we need to report back on that this month.
So as I remember, Jennifer, and I had a question about this as well. I think it was a combination effort between the like Safe Streets and Bicycle Commission, and it addressed that strip of parking spaces in front of the playground at Nealon Park that are less desirable in terms of safety, but also the connectivity to, you know, to the other side of El Camino and bike lanes and all of that together. They had some really nice recommendations.
Anyway, I just thought it was worth bringing up as I saw the project going up, and I know there was some money committed from that developer to this project. Maybe it's outside of our scope, but if it is, just wouldn't want to miss out on that if there's something
that most likely is something that we'll include as an update, like a report at the end, probably not a live presentation. I just made a note of it so we can make sure we bring some information back for October. Great.
I will also add that I served as a liaison from our commission on the Transportation and Planning Master Transportation Planning Master, whatever, committee. That was 3 years or so of work. And last week, I think is it W-Trans, who was the consultant, brought together the formal proposal of all of the work and the analysis. And now I think it goes to council for greater consideration and deliberation. You know, I can't even begin to unpack what that potentially means for our community, or our community. But I do think that, however, you know, we can just have, even if it's sort of supplemental FYIs of when content like that is coming forward or being discussed, or if there is anything that comes up on your radar screen, Adrian and Sean, that you know will be a component where our commission should be more aware. You know, some of these are things, of course, that are for our meetings, but some are also just like, hey, you know, supplemental type of information or awareness.
And that might even be something where we forward out the staff report, not even at a meeting, but
Okay.
let me look into that.
Yeah, we kind of did that with this tonight's agenda, where there's just like a slip sheet that just says, hey, look at the city council report on the Menlo Park Community Campus Project. So that's one way we could do it. But to your larger point, absolutely, anything that sort of touches Parks and Recreation, the commission should be made aware of, because, you know, by extension, that's a way for the public to be made aware of it.
Right.
That's great. Does anyone else have any sort of additions or highlights they want to add to the upcoming ones? I don't have plans to be away for the November meeting. If anyone wants to just take a punt right now and ask for the earlier Wednesday because they need it, I figure since we have eyes on the calendar right now, we might as well give the department a heads up to make their lives easier.
I actually do have a point I'd like to raise, though. You know, Commissioner Johnson, what you were talking about, just like our master plan, and, you know, we've got these priorities that have these work streams that we've identified that we want to commit to make sure that we're investing in these certain components. Like, is there a way that we can use that, please, as our compass to make sure that what we're discussing in these meetings is truly moving the needle on the things that we say are most important? So, you know, we went through and added our mission statement for each of those different objectives at length last week. How do we then make sure that those components are now being reflected in our discussion topics? So, for example, if we've got communications as a new strain of work, you know, or if we have any of these other components, inclusion, whatever it is, do we then assign certain members of our team to then be your liaisons, or to serve as a liaison on that bucket of work, and then have a commitment to make sure that those components are routinely brought through in this agenda for conversation, rather than sort of passively hoping that they will have been touched on at the end of the year? I'd like to see this as I'd like for this commission to be as strategically involved in what we say are our objectives as I know we all desire to be. And by doing so, what control can we then have in making that work a reality, and then seeing it as a part of our ongoing discussion?
So I could just make a suggestion, just from like structuring the agenda standpoint. There is a commissioner reports section. So that could be a good opportunity for this liaison model that you're referring to, where, you know, you might even list it out in the agenda. We want to report out on communication. We want to report out on, you know, sort of the diversity efforts. And if it's a commissioner that's kind of assigned as the liaison or the lead there, then they could report it in that section. If you don't go with that model, then we would maybe just make it a standing item on the agenda to just kind of consistently come back to the work plan. So whatever way you want to do it, I'm just thinking from the agenda building perspective, how the staff might.
And another suggestion is on this schedule or calendar, because this is really kind of guiding us of what's coming up, we can, you know, after it says pickleball, pilot pickleball program, we can in parentheses reference which goal of the commissions it, you know, it pertains to. So if we looked at the year-long schedule, we can see which ones we're actually hitting and which ones we're not. That's another option too.
Is the plan that we invested such lengthy time in last week, is that now posted or shared with all of us to help us then routinely remind, you know, here's the things we said we were going to do and set forward to do as our compass as a team. Here's the things that we need to hold ourselves. Here's how we hope to march forward.
We'll be posting it, and then the update is actually tentatively going to council, and it's in the to be scheduled list of it's coming in a future agenda item. But yes, we will make sure to post those goals, the new ones that we finished.
They end up living on the Parks and Recreation Commission website. There's like a related links section right now. The 2016, 2018 goals are still there. So
thank you.
Actually, we could probably update that now, Adrian, since the commission's already adopted it. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yes.
Adrian, I had something I wanted to mention in terms of calendaring.
Sure.
You know, one of our priorities is, you know, making sure we're serving all residents. And I would really like to talk about inclusive programming.
Great. So can we schedule it for November?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, because right now we don't have anything on November. So let's put it on November. And I'm making notes of it.
Chair Baskin, I don't know if you can see me. I'm raising my
I
hand.
did. I don't know if you heard me. Thank you, Christopher.
One thing I'm really curious about is, fingers crossed, the county's making really good progress with this pandemic, and I know that the Library and Community Services is already, I'm sure, already thinking about transitioning facilities and programs back. And it would be great to, you know, be informed about some of these transitions, and, you know, as needed, of course, the commission's available to provide feedback. I'm thinking in particular of a gymnastics program. As I recall, staff were furloughed from the gymnastics program. But I know that that program has had such a community presence that that getting that back up and running will be really important to residents. Also, Onetta Harris, which has been really creative during this pandemic, also is probably thinking about how to start to transition people back to the actual facility. And so that might be a nice agenda item at some point for us.
I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, a couple things on that. I agree. A fully fledged kind of agenda item. Here's the lay of the land. Here's sort of our initial sort of plans, how things might reactivate according to the county's progress. Also in alignment with like kind of the city manager and city council's directives. But also on every agenda, we try to give a department report, and it will be referring to like kind of the current state of reactivation. There's just a little bit in there right now. And I bring that up because just from a Brown Act perspective, then the item is on the agenda so that you have, you know, you have that vehicle as well to discuss, you know, whatever is going on there or ask more questions.
Does anyone else have any additions, comments you want to add now before we kind of?
Sarah is waving.
Yeah, sorry. The way that it's set
It's
up.
okay.
See.
It's
Hi,
okay.
Sarah.
Hey, is it also possible to get updates on, I don't know how the capital projects are approved, if I don't know if it's annual or whatnot, but when I joined the commission some years ago, one of the things that we first did was like a sprint. It was like a marathon of a meeting, and we discussed and chose how the bathrooms were going to be built at Willow
Oaks.
And that bathroom is yet to have been constructed. And so I would just love to have a lens routinely in like, where are the projects that we have approved and invested time in, you know, so whether it's a bathroom or updates on Bedwell Bayfront or things of that sort, can we get a lens on that too, so that we can see what is the actual timing for investments in the work and the applications of that time that we've spent on those recommendations potentially coming to bear?
Certainly can add that, and Adrian, might be best. That's handled by Public Works, and they do a capital improvement program each year, and it's as big of a operation as the city's budget overall. We can invite a Public Works folks to come over and give a more detailed presentation. They just are way more into the details and can tell you all about each project way better than Adrian and I can. So
That's a great
add
idea.
that.
Do they also then do things like the Bedwell Bayfront or any of those additional modifications? That Public Works?
I have to say that a lot of the department right now is kind of shifted, and they're really focused on the new campus building. So a lot of those capital improvement projects are a little bit on hold or delayed. But I know Commissioner Johnson also mentioned this. So what I'm going to work on for next month is a report talking about where they are in response to the master plan and then the capital improvement projects.
Thanks. I think it'd be amazing. It'd be really wonderful if we could hear from them.
Guys, somebody mentioned earlier in the meeting about moving November up. I'm not going to be around, so I don't know how people are feeling about it, but it'll probably be more difficult for me to be online for the next one. If it doesn't affect anybody, then I'll miss that. Not a big deal.
So were we discussing the possibility of moving it to the 18th? Would that be the?
Yes, that would be the Wednesday before.
But Adrian and Sean, is that?
I just need to double check because I don't think they like to put commissions on the same night. So I just have to check if that date works. Otherwise, I'm happy to float out, you know, the available dates and have you guys do a doodle poll or something like that. Or, you know, respond back what alternate dates might work best for the group.
Yeah. Good point, Adrian. Although maybe one way, since it seems like maybe folks are poised to try to pick a date tonight, the commission could go ahead and take a vote to move to November 7th, 18th, pending confirmation from the city clerk that, you know, that date is available. That way you don't have to wait till next month to kind of finalize. If it turns out it's not available, then next month you kind of have to figure it out.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to move our November meeting to the November 18th Wednesday evening. Do I have a second?
Oh, I'll second.
Okay, so Jennifer Baskin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Staley,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryman,
Yes.
Commissioner Diepenbrock,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes, approve.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Payne.
Yes, and I will take this opportunity to say, unfortunately, I have to leave early, but Good to see everybody. See you next month.
Can we sing the baby next time?
Yeah.
Oh, I brought him. I had him here in the beginning. You guys missed him. Yeah.
You missed out.
But
Congrats.
he's the one I'm going to grab. So yeah, I'm sure he'll make an appearance at future meetings.
Okay, good.
All right. Here, everybody.
And sorry, the motion didn't say pending staff checking that date is available. Do you feel that we have enough calendared already and we can move on to the next items? Does anyone else have anything to add to specific agenda items while we have it up?
I mean, I do want to discuss the communications at some point, but I'm just not ready to, like, it's an entirely new work stream. It's going to need thought and presentation and stuff. I'm not there yet, but as we go into the new year, I really would.
I'll add that to the unscheduled items so we don't lose track of it.
Yeah, that was something we definitely wanted to take up. So up next we have commissioner reports. Jennifer Johnson reporting.
Well, okay, well, thank you. As I'm sure all of you are, I have been stuck here, and I've probably been less out in the world than all of you combined. I have a child who's immune suppressed, so we are in a very, very tiny little bubble. So when Adrian asked me to give a commissioner report, I'm like, I'm not sure what I have to offer, but I have been thinking about it a lot. And one of the things I wanted to bring up is a couple of things that have been brought to me as concerns over the past, few months. Just let me preface this by saying, I think that staff, everybody is working really hard. I know we're all kind of feeling maxed out on everything. I think that there are, and I appreciate that because I am also feeling similarly. I've gotten some feedback from two separate communities who feel like they need some additional support. And I've spoken to some other people about this. So as you guys all know, my passion is inclusion in the disability community. The pandemic and the sheltering in place has disproportionately affected people who have disabilities. They also tend to be people who have more underlying health conditions. So the isolation has been more severe. Individuals with disabilities, children in particular, in terms of being able to access virtual learning is much more difficult for people with disabilities. So that community has been feeling overwhelmingly impacted by this. And I guess one of the things I wanted to bring to the commission's attention and to staff's attention is that, if there were things that, if there were any kinds of things that could be done to kind of help alleviate that. I know that there are some current in-person outdoor recreation programs, and my recollection from the announcements I've seen is that they tend to be focused on youth. And it would be nice to see some kind of inclusive outdoor, socially distanced activity. For those of us who have kids with special needs who have been locked in the house for months on end, and this past month with all of being inside for a month because of all the smoke, it's been incredibly difficult. And I think we would like to feel included in kind of some of the activities that are being hosted by staff. So that's one. I've also heard from some of our seniors, and again, a community that has more underlying health problems, more isolated, more likely to be living alone, that they have, so someone put a post on Nextdoor and there have been 100 replies, and it's basically a senior talking about loneliness, and many seniors coming on and saying, I feel the same way, I feel the same way. One of the, and I know that there are some distance, some virtual services going on in terms of like the program that Avida does, and some others. One of the things I thought, if there are the resources to do so, might be adding, you know, like a virtual social time, like a virtual social hour. I know that that was part of the programming at the senior center, that there was just time to just socialize and chat. And I was hoping that that might be a service that we could provide to seniors who are feeling isolated. So I just wanted to throw those two things out there. And that's all I got.
Oh, great. I made notes. And then just to let you know, we actually have some new senior programming rolling out. So we have a committee that has been meeting on that. And then part of it is kind of getting folks up and running with the technology. So it's starting off with loaning out tablets and doing some training, but also expanding the programming. But I will also mention that to them in terms of kind of possibly speeding up the programming before all the technology piece comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I was kind of hearing, so all of the links that that I asked you for and all the things that I've been sent, I've just posted back to that thread to make people aware.
Oh, thank you.
And so, you know, I know that I can't remember all of the things, but like, you know, there's the trivia, there's the art program that Avida is doing, some of those other things. And I was just thinking that something of like, just let's chat. Let's just like social hour, you know, I miss my grandkids. How are you doing? You know, how can we figure some of this stuff out? Just might be helpful. And I know that there's definitely going to be the technology component of making sure people have access. But just having some of that, you know, little conversation that we're all missing, I think might be helpful, especially to people who are more isolated.
I love that suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Can provide reports even when we're not parking and recreating as much.
I do what I can.
Library and Community Services Department updates. I guess, Sean, you'll be bringing those to us?
Yeah, so there is a written report. It covers, you know, summaries of our online suggestion box, how to get notifications for community events, a little bit about the library curbside pickup service, where food assistance is being offered, reference to the childcare update that City Council received last night, and a little bit of information about the cooling centers, which were activated over Labor Day weekend. I'm happy to answer any questions that commissioners may have about that or any other aspect of the department operations.
I want to just let you know, I think it's fantastic what the library is doing, and especially because, and fingers crossed, some of our kids are going to be starting to go back to public school next week, but the ability to be able to grab books in a safe and convenient way, scheduling an appointment online, all that, it's really been, I've been trying to convert more people to do it, because I have so many friends who keep saying, I have to order books on Amazon. How do I trade books with people? Because kids really normally have access to their school library, but they don't right now. So it's really, I hope, I think it's been fantastic for homeschooling, and I hope other people take advantage of it, because it really is far easier than waiting for Amazon, and actually far better than buying your own books. So thank you for the work on that. Does anyone else have any questions or anything else? Jennifer?
I'm worrying about things ahead of time, so I just wanted to bring this up for you, Adrienne and Sean. we're going to start getting asked soon about what's going to be happening for holiday programs. And I realized during the age of COVID that things are going to be different. And I'm wondering if that's something that maybe staff can brainstorm, because I can completely understand why we wouldn't be able to have a Halloween parade. However, it would be great if, you know, some area of the city could be decorated maybe, and people could drive by or see it at their leisure, but just something to kind of, you know, keep spirits up, I think would be lovely. And same for, you know, same for the holidays. I realize that, you know, some of the things that we typically do aren't going to be possible. But I know that the year that we had, actually, Adrian, I'm not sure if you were here for this. There was a Christmas. There was a Christmas storefront decorating competition. And Sarah and I split up all the stores and went around and did judgings and all of that. But it was a really great kind of community builder, because all of the stores that, you know, really went over the top and were decorating, you know, more people were going into them. And I know for me, for my son, you know, just being able to walk down the street and see all of those kinds of things, seeing the lights in the trees, even if we can't necessarily be going into stores or having a parade, that kind of stuff, just anything we can do to kind of get the happy going would be wonderful. And people are going to start asking about the holiday celebration. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
So I know that our special event coordinator is planning virtual Halloween and holiday events. And I think the storefront decoration was the first year I was here, but I will bring that up with her again. That was in collaboration with Menlo Park Downtown Business. And so that would actually be a great idea to bring people back downtown and then kind of get in the spirit. So I will remind them of that.
We're doing in my office, I help facilitate a lot of these. Oh, look, I have an alligator back here. My son's room. We do a lot of these events virtually and are using event coordinators to use some really dynamic different interfaces, much more advanced than Zoom, where you're placed in rooms and there's different sort of musicians and artists, and you can still meet Santa and you can still do pen pals or whatever it is. It's a much different price point than our community is likely accustomed to with some of these things, which are, you know, rent a costume or whatnot. But I do hope that if there is a way to perhaps even advance some of the thought about some of those things even more creatively, rather than just a turnkey perhaps approach that we've done in the past, that you know, there's a lot of us who are also, a number of people in our community, but even those of us on this commission who are also trying to solve for those challenges in the communities that we work in. And so if there's you know, sort of guidance that we can also give as just brain power or liaisons to connections or ideas that could help bring our community spirits up. Boy, I sure would be happy to contribute even a roadmap of some of those things that we're doing at work too.
That would be great. Thank you.
I have another thing. So this is something I heard about in San Jose. It's not necessarily something that would work in Menlo Park, but San Jose's typical downtown holiday festival, that's usually like a walking around thing, they've converted this year to a drive-through. So people are, you buy tickets, you get a 15-minute appointment slot, and then you can drive through and see all the lights and see, you know, characters and all of that kind of stuff. But I agree with Sarah, like anything that we can do to kind of to put out any holiday spirit that we can would be great. And I know that, like, I always love having this stuff downtown, but if we could also do, and I don't know, if we could maybe, you know, decorate, you know, another site, you know, closer to the Bayside community, as well to just, you know, try and bring spirit to all sides of Menlo Park.
Or even if we gamified it, what if we did like different parts of the community? And I don't know, it would just be kind of fun to get competitive with it, right?
Like a skeleton hunt. You got skeletons all over town and identify them, or do what they have in Palo Alto and San Carlos during holiday times, encourage people to really decorate their homes, and people can, we encourage people to drive by and see those. It's kind of paining me to encourage drive-by, like emissions and driving. I like the exact opposite. But,
no, but drive-by is kind of what we need right now, but I understand. But I love that idea of the decorating houses. And someone on Nextdoor last year, I think, was trying to make a list of all the houses that were decorated. And if that was something that people could just like sign up and like you just check off your address or something, you know, we're decorating. I know that we're going to be looking for places to drive by and see some cool stuff.
Yeah, that's along the lines of some of the ideas that Myra, our event specialist, was kind of kicking around. Like, well, what if we did like a house decorating contest, and folks like kind of submit pictures of their house, and then also agree to have that put on a map. So things that we can do virtually that we kind of can't do in house. We were thinking like a pumpkin carving demonstration or activity. Normally, we kind of shy away from giving members of public knives and stuff, but in their own homes, that's fine. And then our assistant library directors had some pretty good success with like a beer tasting, a virtual beer tasting kind of thing for the grown-ups at Halloween. So we might do, that's also something we kind of really would be hard pressed to do in house. And then the pumpkin carving, turn that into a contest, and then like obviously like a costume kind of contest. So those things kind of translate to virtual in addition to some of those on-site things. So yeah, you could tell that we're really thinking about Halloween. That's a really favorite holiday. Got to keep it spooky.
I was reading some things today because my son's birthday is in a few weeks and I have to try and figure something out for that. But some of the recommendations for like for virtual, you know, celebrations were things like, you know, hiring a magician to, you know, to come to do a virtual kids party, so that it's, you know, kind of like when you have them in your backyard doing something, but you know, some kind of entertainment like that might be a fun thing to do for some of the gatherings.
Could we do drive-in theater?
Oh, I would love that.
Like one of the things that my parents' community has done is they, you know, put up a big screen somewhere. I don't know where. Anyway, and you know, you have all these cars for X numbers of rows apart, but that could be also kind of fun. Just something to like change things up, you know.
I love that idea.
Me
Yeah,
too.
it'd be fun.
I really do.
So up next, we have the Menlo Park Community Campus Project update.
Yes, and on that, really, I just refer to the City Council report that was issued. City Council essentially took all of the staff's recommendations, you know, accepted the term sheet, agreed to sort of bifurcate the pool component from the project, from the main project, so that the main part of the project could continue to be designed, even though that does definitely mean that the pool would have to be demolished with the goal of rebuilding it, of course. Those are kind of the major components. I'm happy to answer any other questions. Just maybe a reminder though of some upcoming dates. So the Planning Commission is scheduled to have a study session on the project on October 5th. And this is listed in that City Council report. And then the City Council is scheduled to give some more direction on the additional work that the city is responsible for on October 13th. And the additional work that the city is responsible for, meaning Facebook's not going to pay for it. The big one is the pool. Another are some structural upgrades to ensure that the facility can be used as a Red Cross shelter. And then some energy upgrades, sustainability upgrades to get the building to net zero energy, have no natural gas, and some other goals there. And so that's on October 13th at City Council. And we'll be sure to send you all a reminder and people
Sean, I had one question after looking at the diagram. When this project was brought to the commission at one point, just to kind of review and look at it, it was described, correct me if I'm wrong, everyone, it was described as the 2-story, multi-generational recreation center. And then I recall that the idea was that there was going to be an underground parking. And when I was looking at this, so I wanted to know if that's still the case, because when I was looking at the image on the report that you attached here, it had the old kind, or it had the current kind of parking configuration. And I know that there have been some complaints about parking there. So I just wanted to know if you could share.
I think you're on mute, Sean.
Sorry about that. I started screen sharing and then forgot to unmute myself. Sorry. So I assume you all could see this diagram here. Great question. About underground parking, my understanding is the water table is too high in that particular area to put underground parking. And the parking actually is all concentrated here, but I just want to orient you. The location of the current Onetta Harris Center is about right here where I'm sort of circling with the mouse pointer. And so the building's actually going to be relocated sort of back here, where this is like where the current senior center parking lot is. So just to kind of be clear about that. And it's the existing number of parking spaces, more or less. And a big reason for that is that Facebook and community members who they've been working with wanted the building to be completed quickly. And so the goal is to not trigger California Environmental Quality Act environmental impact reports. And so the city council can declare that the project is exempt from that requirement as long as it doesn't like increase the existing impacts that are already there. They're essentially replacing like for like facility as far as more or less the same square footage, more or less the same number of parking spaces. And so legally it can be declared categorically exempt. And then the project will move like about 2-3 years faster. So that's the lowdown on parking. Hope that wasn't too much info, but it's about.
Thank you. Then anyone else have any questions for Sean? Well, it looks like we're good. Good to see everyone. I think we can adjourn the meeting. It is 8:24 p.m.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.